Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
With that being said, let me share with you a little bit about my guest today. We have a very an old friend of ours, actually. I don't think Michael Murphy has been on our show since we've been here on Revolution Radio, so I'm looking forward to our discussion. And for those of you that do not know Michael's work, think of what in the world are they spraying? Why in the world are they spraying? Michael has been a prominent spokesperson of the geoengineering movement for several years now. He's been on our show a couple of times back when we were on another network, and we're very happy to have him on today's show, joining us for the first hour. Welcome, Michael. How are you today?
Bernard, doing fantastic, and thank you so much for covering this issue and having me on to share what I have learned. I think it has been almost 2 years. I can remember the last time that we discussed. There's been a lot of important news that's come up in terms of educating the public about chemtrail geoengineering. So really looking forward to chatting with you and all of our the entire audience who is given this issue the respect and the attention that it truly deserves. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael. And one of the things I'd like to start off with immediately is how many changes have happened over the last several years, the last couple years especially. I remember back when I got involved in geoengineering, back when we called it chemtrails, it was a very, very, how shall we say, tabloid-esque, conspiracy theory, fear-mongering type of thing. They're trying to kill everybody. The aliens are doing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just love how we've matured over the last several years. It's probably a lot to do with the help of your influence in the movement. How we have really turned this. How we've really turned this into a movement of really based in science and reality versus speculation and conspiracy. How did you see the change, and how did that happen, Michael? How did we go from being this crazy, not what do we call it, a wingnut type of activism to something that's very real, very substantial? And I know a lot of it has to do with the work, but we're now moving toward calling it geoengineering, which is a great favor to all of us.
Well, Bernard, I think it's due to people like yourself and a number of activists who have gotten educated about this issue. And as you said, the corporate mainstream media has been very effective at demonizing this. And as we illustrated in both films, What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying, which have been seen by millions around the world, these are corporate agendas, and chemtrail geoengineering programs are a way to consolidate an enormous amount of both monetary and political power into the hands of the few, unfortunately, at the expense of all life on our planet. So they're very damaging both to human health and also to all ecosystems around the planet. But It really was a concerted effort. My goal in producing both films was to create an activism culture around the world that used credible science and youth motivation. So it's a kind of a deep, dark issue, but we don't have to allow that darkness to come into us. What we can do is look at this as an opportunity, which hopefully we'll talk about more, to educate the world and really create the future that we want. And the future that I want does not contain breathing in heavy metals and having destruction and weather events that have been engineered. So the films were very effective in terms of educating activists around the world. We do sell it, but we also encourage people to make copies and hand them out for free. And we also have a free YouTube link for both films, and that has really created not only awareness, but it's created a platform for activists around the world. So I think, I can be credited with making the film. However, the activists in this group effort really have to take responsibility, and it should be lifted up very high for using this to educate, whether it be your family, your neighborhood, or even the world. So it's been a good tool to use, but it's been a group effort. So kudos and my thanks to everybody who's been involved in getting this information out.
Absolutely. And, it seems that, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, I don't know if perhaps it is the backlash of, 5 years ago when we were all like, ooh, chemtrails, we're all going to die, that a lot of activists don't even want to hear about chemtrails, even though at one time they were very active in sharing or spreading the information that at least, hey, look up, what is that? What's going on? I've noticed a bit of backlash with some of the other more, how shall we say, popular Facebook pages and or websites that are denying that chemtrails are anything but exhaust from planes. So there seems to have been a little bit of a backlash where people at one point were very, look up, what's that, that, oh, it's nothing. What do you say to that? I mean, I'm flabbergasted. Some of the people I thought were very involved in sharing this knowledge all of a sudden are chemtrail deniers.
Yeah, well, first of all, the science, our documentation, and after you watch the film, I think it'll be quite clear these programs, unfortunately, are very real and very damaging. However, we need not to look at it as a dark issue, but an opportunity really to address something that affects not only us, but our children, grandchildren, and future generations around the world. So we have a great opportunity here very quickly. Geoengineering is a very real science. Sure, do people flip? Yes. And do people not believe in these programs? Very small percentage. And after watching Why in the World Are They Spraying, I would say it's much less than 1% of the people who see it, contradict our belief or what we know is true, that these programs are happening. But I will say this, because of the profitability, and these are probably trillion-dollar industries, it's literally Monsanto benefits many different corporations on many different levels. So, of course, when you expose something that's so damaging but also profitable, you're going to have people who might be paid. And then again, some people might be influenced. There are a number of ways that people can be influenced to turn around and change their mind. And that happens, but I do want to say this. The progress that we've made and the progress that we're making every day is, I would estimate, 1,000 times more any digression that we're having. So when people doubt this and they don't believe it's happening, you know what? I don't even pay attention to them, because my job is not to argue with somebody who doesn't believe in this. I can reach far more people in 4 hours disseminating information, producing films, and doing other work than debating with one person who doesn't believe it. And what I have found, yes, occasionally I come across somebody, they see the film, they're not sure about this, or they strongly oppose me. 4 months, sometimes a year later, and especially after we release What in the World Are They Spraying, I'm not a very argumentative person, so I like to have open dialogue, and I think that's important. I wish I had time to debate everybody or to educate everybody on an individual basis. I don't, but oftentimes the people who opposed my message the first, and I was getting a couple hundred emails a day, year and a half later, they're saying, hey, I was one of those guys that was just nagging you and really against you. Now I've come to believe that these programs are real. Thank you so much for your work. So I've seen that probably 10 to 1. There are still a couple of people who don't want to believe it. There are many reasons for that. If you look at the issue of cognitive dissonance, and then corporate governmental infiltration, we have that going on. And those things are a reality, but again, I want to say we're very close to critical mass. So a recent survey indicated that we have 8% global awareness on geoengineering. That was about a year ago. I would say it's a little bit higher. Critical mass is considered to be at 10%. And once we hit critical mass on any issue, critical mass is the percentage, again, 10%, which is needed on an issue to bring an issue that would be considered highly likely for the entire or most of society to believe that it's real and to take action on this. So we're very close to what we consider a very important mark. So with that, yes, there is a lot of infiltration. There's been a lot of infighting, and there's been a lot of people trying to withhold us from hitting that mark. But once we hit that mark, the dynamics of the movement will change dramatically, as they have in the past 4 years. I mean, it's like you said, it turned from what was considered this crazy conspiracy theory. Now that's getting credibility from pilots, military, geoengineers. They're having symposiums around the world talking about the very programs that we've been saying have been going on for a very long time. So they're moving very quickly. But this is not just some theory. This is all documented. We have scientific data, scientific tests. This is something, unfortunately, that's very real. I wake up every morning and I say, God, can't you please flip me so I don't believe in this anymore? And I, once you realize it's real and the capacity and the harm that these programs do, it's just something that most of us can't ignore. So again, I think it's important, us as activists who are moving forward with this, it's very easy to get angry. It's very easy to address this in anger. However, I think we need to shift our thinking into a more positive manner at which addressing that. When we do that, we become inspirational, we activate people, and it becomes not, oh no, we are doomed, we are going to die. It becomes, wow, we have an opportunity to change our environment. We have an opportunity to create the future that we want. And that's my hope for the entire movement. And largely that's what we have seen. So it's very exciting.
Absolutely. And, I can't help but to put my own layer over what you're just saying, is that even within, let's see, I've been doing this now since 2004 publicly, doing radio shows and videos and whatnot. So I'm going on about 10 years now, and I can't help but notice even the maturity within myself, but in the maturity of the activists or the truthers, if that's what you want to call it, or the people in the consciousness movement, we're kind of growing up. I mean, we were an adolescent movement, so to speak. We were in that adolescent phase of, oh my God, what are they doing? What are they spraying? They're trying to kill us, and then we get that moment of, that idea of oh no, I can't live like this. I'm gonna try to ignore this now. For some people, and then the other, like yourself and myself, we've matured. We've gone to a place now where we're no longer speculating. We're not trying to get hits on our YouTube, videos, or there's still some stuck in the fear-mongering aspect of it, but what I would call tabloid-esque radio and or websites. But the whole idea that, a good example is for me, and I'm wondering how, if you could go a little bit further into the detail of this, of any information that you might have with this. I saw it firsthand, literally in a plane. I was very surprised. I was in a commercial plane. I believe I was flying Delta, and I'm landing in the Roanoke Regional Airport here. And for maybe the 10 minutes toward coming into Roanoke, this spray came out of the tip of the wing. And I filmed it. I don't know what happened to it. It got lost on YouTube somehow. Who knows what happened. But the people that were sitting next to me, I'm like, look, there's stuff coming out of the wing. What's going on here? Have we seen that now it's moved into commercial aircraft? And is that common, or was I just seeing things? What's your take on that?
I don't think you were just seeing things, but most likely, and typically if an airplane has to land, depending on the weight of fuel that it has certain weight requirements. So oftentimes we will, unfortunately, see fuel dumps. And that's really what we're seeing out of our wings. So it's real important to have credible data, because when we move on that, and there's been a video circulating around on YouTube. It's been very popular on Facebook. Somebody had put it out. It had been disseminated by thousands of activists who unfortunately didn't do their research. That flight actually had to do an emergency landing. So at a high altitude, yes, it did do a fuel dump. It obviously was something being dispersed, but it was not geoengineering chemtrail programs. Based on what I've heard, the person who had put that up essentially to bait people and then literally debunk it. But again, I think what it did, although it lacks integrity, and that's deception, and that is not, I don't stand for that whatsoever. I think it's very unethical and very damaging, but I do think the movement probably grew as a result, because it gained a lot of people's interest. And anytime people do that, again, it's not something that's trustworthy, and it's not something that holds ethics. But again, I think it backfired on them, because they were hoping to say, look, these people are crazy just on this one aspect, but we literally have tens of thousands of bits and pieces of information that prove that these programs are ongoing. They have been happening probably well over 40 years. Now they've been ramped up to full scale, I believe, and they're extremely damaging, again, not only to our environment, but to human health. And we've seen aluminum-related illnesses. Aluminum is one of the primary ingredients, go through the roof. We found up to 50,000 percentage points higher aluminum levels in various rain tests. Rain tests are very good testing for atmospheric contamination. And then people have also been getting blood tests, and again, they're finding thousands of times the normal amounts of aluminum, barium, and strontium. That's considered the chemtrail geoengineering footprint in their blood. So there are a number of patents that have been designed to spray these specific toxins out of airplanes. And what we see in the sky matches what geoengineers deny they're doing, but state they urgently want to do. And again, what we're finding in the atmosphere, again, matches exactly what their proposals are. So where is it coming from? We know where it's coming from. It's coming from geoengineering programs, which, again, give certain corporations, certain individuals, tremendous leverage over our environment, and thus over the natural resources on the planet, and thus over the people. So it's a shift to power, essentially what it is, and it's very profitable for certain corporations. So, again, a little bit of disinfo that's going to enter into a movement, but us as activists, we need to be real wise about what we put out, because we're all looking for the truth. I think at least most of us, other than the individuals who have infiltrated this and used 95% truth, and then they divert the rest of the movement into other areas that are really not our common goal. I have a common goal, which many share with me, and that's to get these programs stopped. So in doing so with ethical information, and then ethical tactics, that's the most important thing. So we have to support people, each other as a group, who are moving forward in an ethical capacity. And with that, together we stand, divided we fall. We're standing right now. There's been a lot of attempts to divide the movement. That's being straightened out now. And it's really exciting to see, because we're bringing balance back to a movement that has probably been out of order for a while. But people are beginning to see who's coming in with the infiltrations, and that's what it's all about, having the wisdom and then the integrity to move forward. And not everybody can do that, but most people can. So we're making great strides.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I think a lot of us are going through that change within all of our work, whether it be chemtrails or GMOs or consciousness, whatever it may be. We all seem to be maturing a bit and bringing that, as you said, that integrity toward that true information and scientific information. Now, we have about 10 minutes in this segment, and I wanted to perhaps use these last few minutes of this segment before we go into the quote-unquote, why are they spraying? And then again, you touched on some of that, but we'll touch on that after the commercial break. For our listeners, what can you share with our listeners to help disseminate what they're seeing? I mean, I've heard people say, well, like you said, maybe they're getting close to the airport, they have to do a fuel dump. Well, that's a fuel dump. Some people are saying, well, it's the humidity level or it's the altitude. How can we disseminate? Is it one or two lines is not chemtrails, but a tic-tac-toe pattern is? What would be your way of sharing for the average person when they look up and they see something? How can they tell the difference? Hello, Michael. We can't hear you. Are you there?
Wow, I was talking with the mute button because I had several.
That's okay. I do that all the time. Anyway, what can you tell us how to tell the difference of what we're seeing?
Typically a fuel dump or a condensation trail or a contrail, those do not persist. So they're not going to stay in the sky, spread out, turn into what we see as cirrus clouds. Usually a condensation trail, which is normal since airplanes have been flying. When an airplane flies at a certain elevation, it's very cold up there, and the heat will produce condensation. But it's very similar to our breath when we breathe. So when we breathe out, when it's cold weather, you'll see your breath, it'll quickly disappear. I've never seen somebody walking down the street with 3 miles of breath just lingering in the atmosphere, and that's very similar to that. Depending on atmospheric conditions, you might see, a trail last a little bit longer. But what we're seeing on a regular basis are these long trails. They do not dissipate, and they actually turn into what looks like high cirrus clouds. And they have a wispy type look to them. So we have a lot of footage that we see of these trails, and then they turn into these wispy clouds. Or if it's a very heavy spray day, typically before it rains, we can get into the mechanics of that. They'll spray back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, totally blocking the sun. Typically what they do that for is for weather control, weather modification. So if they want to bring a storm into a certain area, if you remember the primary ingredient that they're putting out, and geoengineers have this in many of their discussions, it's aluminum oxide. And aluminum is a very effective conductor in the sky. So when you put it into a certain region and give a region coverage through the HAARP system or other ionospheric heaters, you can heat up that metal particulate. So when metal particulate heats up, and this is what we're seeing over the West Coast right now or outside of just offshore, you can heat up that metal particulate, and when it heats, it actually rises, and that creates a low-pressure vacuum. So that will steer a storm right into that area. So it's very common after extremely heavy spray days to see very intense storms coming in. In the case of what we're seeing in California right now, there's been a lot of spraying over the coast, especially in the northern part of the coast. And what that gives them the ability to do, and this is not speculation, this is proven. We interviewed Dr. Nick Begich, the HAARP system, High Active Auroral Research Project, the ability again to heat that area up and manipulate jet streams. So the storms that should be coming into California are being diverted north of California, going into the Arctic. Of course, nature will have a rebound. So it rebounds right into the Midwest where I am right now. It's been a very cold summer. We're expected to have a very cold winter. And what they're doing, it appears, to creating an artificial drought. And it's very profitable for a couple of corporations, and specifically agriculture. But I'd like to talk about water rights. So water rights now, that's the big commodity through Agenda 21, and that's what Council on Foreign Relations and a lot of other political initiatives are addressing. So they're working with public-private partnerships, the government partnering with corporations, and essentially privatizing our water supply. So when an artificial drought is induced, it creates a lack of water, and a lack of water gives these corporations with governments the excuse to go in and privatize water.
Yep.
So it's very profitable, and again, that is the next commodity that is on the radar for this. And we look at one company, Bechtel. Bechtel owns over 80% of, I believe it's either the U.S. or the world, of their deprivatized water. Bechtel has ties in the military industrial complex at many different levels. In studying and in my research, there are thousands of corporations involved with this, I believe. So we're looking at this, but Bechtel is of particular interest because they seem to have some monetary interest in many of the things that geoengineering programs create. So that's one area that we're looking into. Of course, Monsanto. What geoengineering does, because what is sprayed in the upper atmosphere eventually comes down.
Yeah.
And it creates what's called abiotic stress. So abiotic stress is anything that stresses our soil. It's too much moisture, it's drought conditions, it's heavy metal contamination, it's fungal overgrowth, and because our sun is blocked out much more than it should be, we're having the overgrowth of fungus. It's really anything that will stress the soil. So we're seeing in Why in the World Are They Spraying? We interviewed a couple organic farmers, some of which who have seen between a 60 and 70% decline in their ability to grow natural organic foods. And this is being seen around the world, and we're seeing ecosystem collapses for many different reasons. But geoengineering is definitely linked into this pH changes of the soil that will affect it. So geoengineering programs do all of this. Monsanto and other corporations have developed a genetically modified seed that will grow.
Oh, we're gonna have to pause that thought, Michael. We're taking a short commercial break. When we return, we're gonna pick up where you left off. Let's remember that the Monsanto seed. We'll be right back after the short break.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Today we are speaking with Michael Murphy, filmmaker and producer of Why in the World Are They, What and Why, I should say, 2 films are they spraying, and we're talking about geoengineering on the planet. Welcome back to the show, Michael.
Oh, thanks again for having me on. Most importantly, thanks for covering this issue. You know, those of us who have really studied this believe it to be the most important issue that we've ever had to address in the entire history of the planet. So we're at a very vital time. We're very close to reaching critical mass, which is, again, 10%. However, geoengineers have put together a bunch of political initiatives to establish world government, and thus not only strip away the sovereignty from the United States and other countries, but also to consolidate a bunch of power. So it's literally, it's very important that we address this, give it the attention that it needs, and that we hit by the end of the year this critical mass. And the dynamics, again, once we hit that 10%, it will become likely that most people in society will subscribe to this and get involved in addressing it, and we will again see the total, complete dynamics change of this issue. And we do have the power and the ability to get these programs stopped. So let's get active, get educated. Both What in the World Are They Spraying? Why in the World Are They Spraying? Which again are available for free. Or if you want to purchase a DVD, make as many copies as you can go to whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com or stopspraying.us, and that helps support our work, gives us resources to continue working full time and really move forward in this most important issue.
And it's very strange how it's very hard to prioritize with so many issues going on in the world today, from quote unquote climate change to quote unquote pollution to quote-unquote greed, and the list goes on and on and on. But, I have to agree with you. If you were to put a common thread between all of them, it would be the quote-unquote chemtrail / geoengineering, where all of these factors are linked in one form or another, as well as, the future of humanity, for that matter. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and to add on to that, for the first time in history, we have an issue that affects each and every living person and living thing on our planet. So what a great opportunity to come together, to become united. We have a common issue that we can all address, and this is it. This is the issue that will bring the world together. So we, again, have a wonderful opportunity ahead of us, and I encourage everybody, if you want to breathe clean air, if you want to live a healthy life, and if you want your children and grandchildren to live on a planet that is driven by nature rather than corporations, which are very unforgiving and at times some of them very evil, then this is your issue to get involved with. So you can go to the Coalition Against Geoengineering.org for more information in terms of what you can do for activism. I put that together with G. Edward Griffin, who, of course, is very well known for many issues like this and very well respected.
Now I was going to say it's funny, but it's wonderful how it connects. For me, one of my big issues is genetically modified organisms and Monsanto, and you were touching on that before the break. What is the link for those that are listening and those are concerned with GMOs and what do they call them, the Terminator seeds and whatnot? What's the link between geoengineering and Monsanto?
Geoengineering has a profound effect on the weather. And anytime you put a particulate into our sky, it acts as what's called cloud condensation nuclei. So instead of clouds forming, water molecules combining on others, falling as natural rain, they actually combine onto this metal particulate, and instead of falling, they drift. So it creates droughts in certain areas. Of course, that rain eventually does have to fall, so we have these massive downpours, which have been seen all around the world, where we have sometimes 6-10 inches in an hour. Things that were really unheard of 15, 20 years ago. Now they're a regular event. And because the fallout contains heavy metal, and it also changes the pH of our soil, it stresses our soil, and it creates what's called abiotic stress. So around the world, we've seen declines because of this in our ability to grow natural organic foods. And if we look back to farming that was done by our ancestors were dependent on natural rain, natural sun, and natural seeds. And now, again, this is declining by the year, by the day, and we're really in a situation where natural foods are not growing anymore. So Monsanto has a patent for a genetically modified Terminator seed that addresses abiotic stress. So in summary, essentially what these programs are doing, they're destroying our ability to live off of nature, and in doing so, they have redesigned the seed, which again is a Terminator seed, so it will not regenerate, so the farmer is forced year after year after year to go back to Monsanto and obtain these seeds, and it's literally the corporatization of natural systems. So it makes the corporations who produce these seeds literally the creator of these seeds. And this is something that every major prophecy, every religion has covered in their prophecies about this big corporate governmental conglomerate or the beast, some call it the beast, coming over, taking power and ruling the planet. And this is the way that they do it, through death and destruction of nature. So again, that's the big shift to power. It's a shift from what God's creation or nature, being able to produce. They're killing that. And again, that's where the shift to power is. They come in as, hey, we're going to solve this problem. We are the heroes. We have these seeds that in certain studies are very destructive to human health and very destructive really to natural life on the planet. So this is something that affects, again, each and every one of us. If we do not address this issue and allow it to continue, the future looks very dark. However, if we stand in, get activated right now, because again, they're pushing for legislation very, very strongly, which could go into effect by the end of 2015. So again, it's literally a race of time. So I encourage everybody to utilize social media, utilize your email list, whatever your audience is, get the information out there. And again, Why in the World Are They Spraying has won over 14 awards, and it's said to be one of the most powerful tools that we have for activism. There are other ones. You can, again, go to the Coalition Against Geoengineering.org. We have a lot of resources for you to get active. The important thing is that you utilize the audience that you have, those that you have influence over, to disseminate this information, and that's how we see change, and that's how we have in the past. The movement's been growing in leaps and bounds. We've hit a couple of speed bumps, but we're getting past those, and that's important. Anytime you hit a speed bump, it's important to learn, it's important to grow, and that's how we get up to the next level. So all the challenges that we face as individuals in the past year and a half, there have been many. I've been called many different things by a couple of individuals, and that has helped me to gain wisdom and has helped me to grow. And although not particularly pleasant to deal with, and it can be heartbreaking, especially when you consider some people very close friends, it's a growing experience, and we need to look at these as activists. So many people are afraid of having opposition. Opposition is the very thing, just as when you lift weights or go through any training program, it's that resistance that gives us strength. And then, whether it's your bench pressing 100 pounds, that resistance allows us to get up to 150, sometimes 200 pounds or even more. And that's what it's about. So it's about not looking at that as a negative thing, but allowing what is meant to be negative and using it for our personal growth. And it's a beautiful thing. It's just not so pleasant, but it is part of our training again.
I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. I feel we've been living parallel lives on that particular front. That there seems to be a split in the. And my work encompasses more than chemtrails, but I will say that there seems to be a split as far as those who are just interested in getting the truth out there, getting the work out there, and those that are based in ego, for lack of a better term. And I'm seeing that. You mentioned it earlier. There is a prophecy where, the world will split. There will be those that are moving forward and then those that are stuck in the past and just going to be stuck in that lower vibration. And that's fine. That's their choice, and we don't need to be a part of that. And I'm glad to see that you made it through to the other side. So I'm very glad you've continued this work, and we are all the better for it because of it. Speaking of those that made it through, let's say, you have some wonderful people in the movie. Why in the world are they spraying? I just watched it for the first time. I'm embarrassed to say, but I have always watched clips of it. But some of my favorite people are on there. Everywhere from, of course, Edward Griffin to the gentleman from HAARP and Barbara Peterson, I believe is her name. I always forget her name. Tell us a little bit, though, as far as the connection with HAARP. A lot of people are very concerned that the whole chemtrail geoengineering, quote-unquote, experiment is to kill humanity, which I always found very silly, a very silly conspiracy theory. Why would they want to kill everybody and poison everybody? They want to do it for money, and you've really hit the nail on the head when you said the corporatization of nature is a very good point about this. But that little missing piece for me was the HAARP aspect, and how does that play into all of this?
Well, the HAARP is a way. There are many applications, and I think it's important to note we covered weather control and why in the world are they spraying. The reason that we did that was something that everybody recognizes. Our weather is just very erratic, and it's very rapidly. So we chose that to be an introduction, but there are many onions, many layers of the onion that need to be peeled. So there are probably objectives from these programs, some that we probably have no idea about. But weather control seemed like the most effective way to hit the masses. That's not to say that those who cover Morgellons or any of the other issues are not equally as important. However, when you hit the masses, you have to hit them at a level that they're willing to accept. So it's been great in terms of making people aware of this. And then, some of the other issues, people will do the research and become aware of. So I really want to encourage those who are addressing issues other than weather control. It's equally important, and we're all in this together. That was just what I felt called to do. I moved forward. It was effective in raising awareness in many different levels. So it's very important to recognize these other theories or the truths that come in because, again, they're very important. But the HAARP system is an ionospheric heater, and it has many different applications, one of which is weather control. So we interviewed Dr. Nick Begich. He wrote the book, Angels Don't Play This HAARP, and close friend, both live in Hawaii, a couple months out of the year. So we connected actually and did the interview in Hawaii. And for the first time, again, Dr. Nick Begich addressed the issue in terms of aerosols into our sky as being a more effective conductor and making the system perhaps be more effective and being more easy. So through aerosols, you can make the sky more conductive. We're seeing lightning on the increase no matter what region we're on. Mm-hmm. And in Hawaii, lightning was very uncommon. Now it's a regular occurrence. And again, that's because our skies are filled with conductor, and that's heavy metals. That's the aluminum that they're spraying out of there and probably some other metals. anyways, it can interact with the aerosols by making it more conductive, and by heating up this particulate, it can actually make the HAARP system more effective in shifting jet streams, and we're seeing around California and other areas. So Nick was essential in bringing about this information, and his work is very tight and very honest in his integrity. So it was really important and really great to get to know him in this process.
Very cool, very cool. Now, if you could you expand a little bit on the idea of the corporatization of Mother Nature, literally, and what are the repercussions? What does it mean to the average person? And I know we touched a little bit on it, but we're talking about soil, we're talking about seed, we're talking about water. I mean, just everything that incorporates what gives life on the planet.
We're talking about everything that gives life on the planet, so the corporations want to be the creator. So in doing so, they have to kill our natural systems, and we're seeing not only organic foods, our ability to get yields go down by, in some cases, 70% in a 10-year period, but also forests. Our forests are declining everywhere. We're seeing die-offs in many different reasons. We have this beetle that's coming in and a lot of fungal overgrowth, and some scientists are scratching their heads going, we don't know why these beetles are multiplying. Beetles will attack a tree that's weakened, and being the fact that geoengineering programs do change our soil pH, what requires an acidic soil to grow, when it's alkalized by aluminum oxide, which aluminum oxide will, that plant life will start to die. Also, the heavy metal contamination, aluminum oxide, when it's in its free form, a lot of plant life has root systems that will literally shut down when this toxin is put into the soil, and that's what we're seeing. So the tree will die a very slow death. It won't get its proper nutrition and water. So we're seeing forests collapse around the world. Bad news, a company called Arbogen has developed genetically modified trees.
Yeah.
So again, it looks like it's the to destroy nature and then come in with this corporate system, and that's where the consolidation of power is. So if they can control our food, they can control our forests, they can control our weather, they literally can control the population and do whatever they want to do, and that makes them the creator, gives them godlike power. And that's a direct quote from geoengineer David Keith, who said geoengineering gives man godlike power. Now, I've never chased godlike power, Bernard. I know that you have once or twice. I'm just kidding. I know that you're all in for. You've never chased that, and most of us have not. But I think it must be one heck of a rush to have that. And I think it's very similar to a drug addiction. And many people, when they're in their addictions, not everybody, but certain people have little regard to what their actions do to other people. And we're seeing that with geoengineers. So I think what they're doing, they're addicted for power. And that's probably, when it's filled with pride and ego, it's probably the hardest addiction to break. And many people, I believe, probably have no desire, no real care of what they're doing to humanity. Some people have an idea, and I think that's part of the agenda. It's one of their objectives, and they're not going to move on that. So, in the spiritual realm of things, they are doing probably what they are called to do. We've seen this in many of the different scriptures, and that's why it's even more important for us, those of us who are from the Creator and are supporting the natural environment that our Creator created. So it's so important for us to step up. There is a war, there is a battle going on, and it's essential if we value life and value our planet that we step up. Our ozones are being shredded by the day. Geoengineers are very open that their programs destroy our ozone. We are seeing, again, aluminum and other related illnesses go through the roof that are related to fine metal particulate inhalation. This is literally creating a lot of illness. Barium, which again is a primary ingredient in what people are calling the geoengineering footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium, that lowers our immune system. And when our immune system is lowered, it makes us more susceptible to all kinds of illnesses. Of course, we're in a time, an all-time high of illnesses, Pharmaceutical companies love that. They profit from it. They grow. They gain more power. So, what do you want to see? Do you want to put your power and your energy towards supporting these corporations, or do you want to put your time and energy into restoring our Creator's creation? And I think the answer for most of us, unless you're on the other side, is the latter. That would be to protect our environment and, again, to create the future that we want. We have this unique opportunity, not only opportunity, but really the God-given opportunity and ability to do this. And that's why my message is not one of fear. I used to address this in anger, and I think it spread more anger. And it creates an environment of negativity. And when we do that, I think it can be very damaging, especially when, we project our own anger. It could be from past childhood scars or, things that we haven't healed with onto the issue, and that spreads. And that creates negativity. So I like to, I've changed my thinking, and I've learned to compartmentalize, the things that I'm still working on, my personal development issues. And when I address this again, it's a message of hope, and I'm very hopeful. And I don't think I could wake up angry and thinking that I'm doing, because I wouldn't address it. I really do believe that we have more than an incredible chance at stopping this, and that's why I do what I do every day. And I'd like to encourage others. If you're thinking it's one of anger, it's very easy to get angry. I can totally relate to that because I was there. But we need to change our thinking around to become more effective in our activism. So our message, I'm hoping, as a group, will turn into one that's more inspirational than fearful, because there's nothing to fear. If we all address this, we have the victory, and I'm claiming the victory. The dark side, they're done, brother.
Right on. Thank you for that, Michael. And I was going to ask you, what would you say to humanity if you knew everybody was listening? And I think you just said that. We need to wrap things up with Michael. Unfortunately, our time has gone by so quickly this afternoon, and I thank you so much for that. I do want to leave you with this question, Michael. I don't know if we're going to have time for you to answer, but maybe you can say something. Have you done anything on climate change or recording? Someone is asking in the chat room, like tracking the patterns of changing areas.
Well, climate change has been misunderstood, but our climate is changing. Now, is it warming or cooling? I don't take sides on that.
Right. It is changing, though.
I think it's divisive. No question about it. Geoengineering is one of the major factors in our climate changing. So we're seeing drastic weather changes. This is due to weather control, and geoengineers talk about that. They talk about their programs will change where it rains, where it doesn't rain, and their desire that they have to control it. And but again, taking a side on the global warming issue, because most of society is aware of this issue, actually 96% of society, and there's about a 60-40. Taking a side, it's not our common goal. Our common goal is to get these programs stopped no matter what.
Thank you, Michael. We're at the break. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon, Michael. We need to catch up again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you for joining us today.
So much, Bernard. Really appreciate all that you're doing, and God bless everybody out there that's been listening. Keep up the great work, and most importantly, keep looking up.
That's right. Thank you.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on The Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.